Assalamu alaikum and welcome everyone. This is Zishan Isaac with Zishan on air every Sunday, live with the social media platform as well as on the legacy media. And we have a lot to cover as always. And without further ado, let's get right into our key topics. First of all, the President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump, he addressed the United Nations, but at the same time, he also criticized the United Nations and even the world leaders in General Assembly in his address. And he also, as he was walking toward the escalators, they stopped working, and then there was an issue with the teleprompter, and then there are different stories about it because they say that every head of the state, their team, or the country, whoever is speaking or their leader is speaking, it's their responsibility. So I looked at that how come the teleprompters would stop working, especially, and he made a joke about it, but at the same time his address was very critical of the United Nations. And there are different theories to it. One is obviously when the head of the state of Israel, when he spoke, the entire General Assembly was empty. There were only 10 or 11 people left, or those states who are still supporting the state of Israel, at least from a General Assembly is concerned. And then almost 140 plus or close to 150 countries, they voted in favor of the state of Palestine. And Palestine, or Palestine, as they say in Arabic, is still an issue with the UN Security Council because the United States of America continues to veto the creation of a Palestine state and the two-state solution that many of these other leaders, and especially in the Arab and Muslim world, they have given the solution. But at the same time, speaking of that, there's 6 head of the states from the Muslim countries, and these are Muslim states. So not to be confused with Islam, I want to be very clear. And I also want to be very clear in my opinion, in very humble opinion, based on my decades of history, historical research, and decades of research in terms of how all these nation states were formed after the end of World War I, and then many other got independence after the end of World War II. Before, there was just this one big umbrella under the Ottoman Empire, or the Ottomans, which basically were the governing body of all these different factions within the existing Muslim states. So you see in this picture, whoever is following me on YouTube and on Facebook, and both are live right now, YouTube Live and Facebook Live, the president was sitting right next to the president of Turkey, or Turkey they say, Erdogan. And then there were other leaders from Indonesia, Qatar, UAE, Pakistan, and then Saudi Arabia. But who is driving this entire session? A picture is always worth 1,000 words. It's Turkey and the President of the United States of America. And no statement came out, as many were thinking maybe there would be some joint statement by the Muslim leaders of these Muslim states. Remember, there's a difference between a Muslim leader and a leader of a Muslim state. And right now, the Muslim world doesn't have a leader, because at least in the Christian world, or the Vatican, or the church, they have the Pope. And Pope is from the United States of America, first time in the history of papacy, they say. And that is the Catholics, or the Pope for the Catholics. But if you look at the Muslim world, there's no such thing as that. You will see a lot of different local imams and those local leaders, and there are millions and millions of these mosques. So you have millions and millions of them, those leaders who are then de facto so-called leader of their own group of people. So it's important when someone talks about Islam, there's no one single body that can actually talk about Islam, and it has never been the case unless you go back in many different historical aspect of different eras where different dynasties or different kings or different sultans and different amirs, as they call it, they were ruling. Mostly those were the previous 200, 300, 400 years of the modern history, if you may call it. So it's important that there's nobody in the Muslim world who's actually leading. You will come to get to this kind of argument with different Muslims or different countries. Saudi Arabia, for example, if you talk to any Saudis, they'll be like, oh yeah, we are the de facto leader. Okay, thank you for your opinion. Then you would talk to maybe Indonesia or Indonesian, they'll say we are the largest country in terms of population of Muslims, so we are perhaps, but they do their own business. And then you may say that, okay, Pakistan, they may argue that we are the leader because we just have the nuclear weapon, but their economy, as we all know, is in shambles. So you can argue that as well. And then Turkey can say, okay, well, we had this old glory with regards to the Ottomans and the Ottoman Empire. And then maybe UAE can claim that, okay, well, we are the wealthiest, or we have Dubai, what have you. So as you can see, a lot of different argumentative points, but no substance in terms of even these 6 Muslim leaders who met with President Trump. Great opportunity, but as a Muslim or as any individual all over the world, if you think from that person's point of view, nothing came out of it. And that's a very interesting situation, because they couldn't agree on this, and they couldn't even had their own press conference, all these 6 Muslim states leaders. No, they didn't. So that's why I wanted to spend a little bit of time here, because the young generation, they don't know history. We don't study history, and we don't study the objective history and then also use our own analytical mind to recognize how do we end up in this current situation in terms of this the state of Israel, and then the situation with the Palestinians, and then obviously the Balfour Declaration that I covered last time. And all of this is public knowledge and information. The politicians, they just continue to use this entire disastrous situation of human misery that we are seeing in front of our eyes. So unfortunately, nothing came out of it, and we'll see as we continue to see what goes on in that part of the world. Here, Jerome Powell from a domestic news perspective says Congress and the private sector, not the Fed, are responsible for, quote, the things that will really matter for future generations, unquote. And here, it's very rare that sometimes the Federal Reserve also make comments, but he is the outgoing chairman for the Federal Reserve, and President Trump will certainly nominate and appoint the next Fed chair. So here he was quoted in the Fortune that, quote, we have a really important job, maximum employment, price stability, he said. We regulate and supervise the banks. We operate parts of the payment system, but those things are really about cyclical demand management and financial stability, unquote. And then he argued in terms of long-term trajectory for America's long-term trajectory standpoint, and investment in people, education, workforce training, and productivity growth are the levers that determine whether the next generation is better off than the last. And he emphasized that the U.S. educational sector particularly needs investment to keep up with the record technological advancement. So he made his point, and the next Fortune Global Forum returns October 26 to 27 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. CEO and global leaders will gather for a dynamic invitation-only event shaping the future of business. With regards to the Trump administration, Trump asked Supreme Court to decide whether he can end birthright citizenship, and this is where CNN and other major outlets have published this information, because last time the ruling majority of the court 6-3 essentially limited but did not completely rule out the power of courts to block those policies, meaning in every state there are a lot of these different types of lawsuits that have been filed with regards to their immigration cases, and the Supreme Court implicitly allowed those other types of nationwide blocks to continue with regards to lower courts when they are challenging some of these decisions of the administration. So, as you all know, and if you don't know, we are the nation of laws, and there are different rules and regulations and laws that govern the system of the United States of America, at least from a 30 or 50,000 feet overview perspective. The lower courts code decisions invalidated a policy of prime importance to the president and the administration in a manner that undermines our border security. That was Solicitor General John Saar, the administration's top appellate attorney. Those decisions confer, without lawful justification, the privilege of American citizenship on hundreds of thousands of unqualified people, unquote. And CNN reviewed a copy of the appeal, which has not yet been docketed at the High Court. So that is the system. You can look it up and do some research on this. Despite more than a century of understanding that the 14th Amendment confers citizenship on people born in the United States, the Trump administration told the Supreme Court in an appeal the nation was, quote, mistaken, unquote, and that the view became, quote, pervasive with destructive consequences, unquote. So that's the argument being made by Trump administration. Los Angeles Times has reported a U.S. veteran spoke out against his wrongful arrest by ICE. Now he's being accused of assault. So this news was making a lot of different viral updates, or as some news goes viral, and also on Google and other platforms when you basically look at the news, because ICE arrested Army veteran George Retes Jr. during a massive July raid at Glass House Farms in Camarillo, where he worked. He was jailed 3 days without charges after Retes wrote an op-ed about his arrest. Federal officials accused him of assault, an allegation he strongly denies. So this is reported by Los Angeles Times. After a tour of duty in Iraq, that's who Retes is, moved back to Ventura County this year to find a job and spend more time with his wife and 2 young children. In February, he began working as a contracted security guard for Glass House Farms at its cannabis greenhouse in Camarillo. Then on July 10th, everything changed as ICE raided Glass House, one of its largest immigration raids ever, while he was trying to get to work. And you can read more about this, but I'll just cover a few things. In his September 16th opinion pieces for the San Francisco Chronicle entitled, quote, I am a U.S. citizen who was wrongly arrested and held by ICE. Here's why you could be next, unquote. Retes detailed his ordeal. He has begun to take legal action to sue the U.S. government under the Federal Tort Claims Act. More than 360 people were arrested in the raid, including numerous undocumented immigrants, and 1 person died. And this is where he said that, quote, my whole point in sharing my story, I'm trying to warn as many people as possible, unquote. He said in an interview this week, quote, it doesn't matter if you are politically left, right? If you voted for Trump, hate him, love him, it doesn't matter. This affects all of us, unquote. And this is his story, and in an aerial video that captured the initial confrontation. Retes is seen driving up to the line of agents. He steps outside of his car and remains by the driver's side as he tries to reason with the agents. About 20 seconds later, he gets back in his car as the agents press forward. Within seconds, they surround his car, at the same time pressing protesters back as they begin to lob tear gas canisters. Federal officers surrounded Retes and pushed him to the ground. He could hardly breathe, he said. As officers knelt on his back and neck, he was arrested, jailed for 3 days, and was not allowed to make a phone call or see an attorney, according to the Institute for Justice, a public interest law firm that is representing him. And he was further quoted, quote, I was in shock, unquote. He said the agency had, quote, an opportunity to say, okay, what we did was wrong. We'll take responsibility, unquote. It's crazy that they are willing to stand 10 toes down and die on a hill of lying and say, I assaulted officers, unquote. So this is where he is very upset. And he furthers basically another person, Anya Bidwell, his attorney and senior attorney at the Institute for Justice, Bidwell said, quote, when people in this country stand up to this government, This government responds with fury, unquote. Bidwell said. Quote, they are trying to impose their own version of reality. It's so important for people like George to say, quote, I know who I am and I know what happened to me. You can't just frame it as something that it's not, unquote. President Trump's Department of Homeland Security never charged Retheiss with a crime, but after he wrote an op-ed about his experience this month, DHS started issuing new accusations against him, saying he was arrested for assault during the raid, which the 25-year-old veteran has denied. Retheiss said he never resisted, and now is being targeted for retaliation because he spoke out about an arrest he sees as unlawful. So I've literally in verbatim said things that were written in the Los Angeles Times. And there's more to it, and it's interesting because he further said, quote, I served my country, I wore the uniform, I stood watch, and I believe in the values we say make us different. And yet here on our own soil, I was wrongfully detained, unquote. He wrote, quote, is stripped of my rights, treated like I didn't belong, and locked away, all as an American citizen and a veteran. If it can happen to me, it can happen to any of us, unquote. So that's why this entire story about this veteran is making a lot of rounds in the social media. The mainstream media may not cover it for some reasons, and maybe they will for 10 seconds or maybe a minute, but we would like to make sure that all of us are aware, and we are aware of our rights as well. Homeland Security officials did not respond to requests for comment or answer questions about their claim of assault as reported by Los Angeles Times, and maybe they may have done it later, but that's the news article reported by Los Angeles Times. United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, as we all know them by this abbreviation, unveils first changes to naturalization tests in multi-step overhaul of American citizenship standards. So notice of implementation of 2025 naturalization civics test. It's been now posted and publicized, and it's there in the Federal Register. And there's a lot of information. I'm not going to go into detail, but I'm sharing some of this legal authority, Section 312 of the Immigration Naturalization Act, INA. And it outlines the civic requirements for naturalization. Candidates for naturalization must have, quote, knowledge and understanding of the fundamentals of the history and of the principles and form of government of the United States, unquote. CINA, Section 312A, 2, 8 section, these are, and then USC 1423A2. So everything is there documented. Like I said earlier, we are the nation of laws, governed by these rules and regulations and these stipulations. So here the naturalization test is changing. Now what is changing? I will tell you in a minute. It's going now from 100 to 128 questions, the number of test questions for the exam, to 20. That's basically how the civic test and the naturalization civic test is changing. And then from 10, before it was 10, and the number of correct answers needed to pass the civic test to 12. From 6, before it was 6. So they're making it tough and difficult to now pass the naturalization and citizenship test. And then to pass the civics test to 12 from 6, and then officers asked all 20 questions, and the alien had to answer 12 questions correctly. The test was administered by an officer who asked the alien questions from a computer-generated list of 20 questions, selected randomly at prescribed levels of difficulty from the bank of 128 questions. With the 2020 Naturalization Civics Test, USCIS aimed to standardize the administration of the Naturalization Civics Test and ensure that the test provided a meaningful assessment of an alien's knowledge and understanding of U.S. history and government, and that it was uniform and fair for all aliens applying for naturalization. So that's the premise and background behind it. So now what is happening? So 2025 Naturalization Civics Test officers will only be required to ask questions until the alien either passes or fails the test. This is the only difference from the 2020 Naturalization Civics Test. Therefore, when an alien answers 12 questions correctly, the officer will stop administering the test. Similarly, when an alien answers 9 questions incorrectly, thus failing the test, the officer will stop administering the test. The implementation of the 2025 Naturalization Civics Test, as discussed in this notice, is a procedural change and will not change the passing score. So here is now approximately 75% of the content came from the 2008 nationalization civics test, because they raised from 100 to 128 questions, right? And then 25% of the test constituted new content. So how is this new nationalization test different? The current test is a 2008 version that has a question pool of 100 civic questions. The new test will have a question pool of 128 civic questions. So 100 to 128, that's the key difference, as I mentioned earlier. And the current test consists of up to 10 questions, and passing the test requires 6 out of 10 correct answers. The new test consists of up to 20 questions, and the applicant must answer 12 out of 20 correctly to pass. The old test asked civic questions is a simplified format, while the new test has more emphasis on English proficiency and has expanded the civics questions. In the new version, officers will ask questions until the applicant passes or fails. If the applicant answers the first 12 questions correctly, no further questions will be asked. USCIS is also resuming the practice of sending investigators to interview applicants' co-workers and neighbors, and the review of an applicant's social media activity has been expanded. So that's how many law firms and attorneys and how they are also reading this and communicating this to their, I would say, people who have been working with them or to their clients. Top 10 employers of H-1B visa holders as of June 2025. So Amazon Web Services, 10,000. TCS, Tata Consulting Services, 5,505. Microsoft, 5,189. Meta Platform, 5,123. Apple, 4,202. Google, 4,181. Cognizant CTS, Cognizant Tech Solutions, 2,493. JP Morgan Chase, 2,440. Walmart Associates Inc., 2,390. And Deloitte Consulting LLP, 2,353. This data as of June 30th, 2025. Source is USCIS. And on the right hand side, you can see the computer needed new visas 75,000 plus 428. And the income goes anywhere from 101K. That's the median income. So half could be lower, half could be above 101,000. So it's not the average. Average is calculated differently. This is the median. And the renewed visas, 179,822. And median income for continuing employees is 135K. So different sectors and occupations are listed here by USCIS: architecture, engineering and surveying, education, administration, medicine, health, math and physical sciences, life sciences, management and officials, professional, technical and management, and then social sciences, and then there are some unknown occupations as well. Here is a full 30 lists by Pew Research Center in terms of the employers with the most H-1B approvals. Amazon.com or AWS came at the top, number of approvals with 11,299. That's a total of 2.9%. Second is Cognizant Technology Solutions, CTS, with 7,654, 2%. And Infosys is number 3 at 7,349, 1.9%, almost 2. Tata Consulting Services at 6,914 at 1.8. Google, number 5 at 5,465, 1.4%. Microsoft at 1.2%, 4,793. And then Apple is number 7. Then Meta, JP Morgan Chase, Capgemini, HCL America, list goes on, Deloitte, Walmart, and then Ernst & Young, IBM, and so on and so forth. So these are the top 15. And then number 16, Wipro, then Accenture, Oracle, Amazon Web Services, Intel, 21, LTI, Mindtree, 22, Cisco Systems, 23, Fidelity Investments, 24, Amazon Development Center, US Inc., 25, Tech Mahindra, Americas Inc., 26, Compunal Software Group, 27, Qualcomm Technologies, and then 28 is Citibank, 29 is Tesla, and 30th is Salesforce Inc. with 1,021.3% of the total approvals. And then here is the entire list. H-1B visas approved by country in fiscal year 2024. India, place of birth with 283,755. That's the total number. China is 46,722, nowhere near to India. Philippines at 5,258, that's number 3, and Canada 4,227, South Korea 3,987, Mexico, Taiwan, then Pakistan at 3,055, and Brazil at 2,641, Nigeria at 2,275, Nepal 2,057, United Kingdom 1,727. So this is the list. UK, as I mentioned, Colombia 1,646, Turkey 1,432, France at 1,281, Iran at 1,237, and Vietnam 1,213, and Bangladesh at 1,173. And then Spain, Germany, Russia, Japan, they all come with thousands, and then goes below 4 digits at 994, plus with Russia onward. And this is the entire list. UAE at 460, and I'm just sharing this with you. You can go back and watch this YouTube live and Facebook live. You'll see this entire list, and this is by USCIS. And then Uruguay at 58, Malawi 33, and then you can see Niger with 9 approved H1B, Yugoslavia with 8, and then the very last one, Turks and Caicos and Liechtenstein, difficult to pronounce that country's name, and then Guinea, Maldives, they all have 1, Djibouti 3, for example. So this is where we will stop in terms of today's social media live streaming. And I would like to make sure that we also thank our key advertisers, especially Affordable Insurance of Texas, AITinsurance.com. You can get all your insurance needs: auto insurance, commercial insurance, health insurance, business insurance, homeowners insurance, and especially for all your auto insurance needs, contact them 713-785-4000. They've been in business for decades in Houston, Greater Houston, and different cities of Texas as well. AITinsurance.com. You can view their website online, AITinsurance.com, or call them 713-785-4000. Affordable Insurance of Texas for all your auto insurance needs, and you will save hundreds and thousands of dollars. Just give them a call and see what could be the best quotes they can give you. 713-785-4000, AITinsurance.com. And I would also like to thank Roop Sari Palace, thousands of square footage under one roof for grooms and for brides and for men, women, boys and girls, toddlers of all different age groups and for ages. You contact them, and for formal wear for grooms and for formal wear for brides as well, and even for those who are attending weddings and all these different functions and events. And if you want to look classy and want to really dress to impress, contact Roop Sari Palace. Their phone number is also on the screen, and you can call them at 832-267-0065, 832-267-0065, or just visit Hillcroft Shopping Center, and they're at the Harvin Drive. You cannot miss it. And roopsari.com is their web address. ROOPSARI.com. You can also order online, and they'll just ship it to you anywhere in the US, and just go online. Roop Sari, ROOPSARI.com, roopsari.com, Roop Sari Palace. So with that, I would like to sign off and continue with the legacy media. And please subscribe if you have not subscribed my YouTube channel. And this is a lot of information, a lot of research that I do. And we thank our key advertisers. And you also can reach out to hundreds and thousands of people, especially through social media and also through legacy media, by contacting me and reach out to me. And with that, I'm signing off. Thank you so much.